This is a paid program and is provided for informational purposes only.
This is William Wolf to tell you about Maryland Deli and Mini Mart on the northwest corner of 7th Street in Maryland. It is sure to become your favorite one-stop shop. Great sandwiches with boar's head meats, fresh salads, fresh coffee in many flavors, China Mist tea, and a large selection of cold beer and fine wine, including kosher wine from Europe, Israel, and the United States. Call for wine case price specials. Need gas? Use your Shell card for a 5% discount. Always clean and inviting, Maryland Deli and Mini Mart has everything you expect from a Mini Mart and much more. But don't take my word for it. Check it out for yourself. The northwest corner of 7th Street in Maryland, or give them a call at 602-277-6269. That's 602-277-6269. That's Maryland Deli and Mini Mart, 7th Street, Maryland, Phoenix. Located near several synagogues, water available for Sabbath walkers. Tell them William Wolf sent you there.
Start this year right with a well-trusted accounting firm here in the Valley, Nelson & Robles PC, certified public accountants in the Valley since 1977. Nelson & Robles PC specialize in monthly accounting and tax preparations for all types of businesses, as well as individuals, trusts, and estates. If you have an accounting or tax need, then call Nelson & Robles PC today at 602-944-4242. That's Nelson & Robles PC, a trusted Valley accounting firm since 1977. 602-944-4242. Call today.
Now on News Talk 960 KKNT, it's the Middle East Radio Forum. Your chance to talk about the turmoil in the Middle East. To call in live, dial anytime at 602-508-0960. That's 602-508-0960. Outside of the Valley, call toll-free 888-960-9696. Now your host for the Middle East Radio Forum, Attorney William J. Wolf.
Good afternoon. My name is William Wolf. Welcome to Middle East Radio Forum. It's May 27, 2007. It's Memorial Day weekend. This show is every Sunday, noon to 1 o'clock here in Arizona. And, of course, adjust your time if you're listening elsewhere through the magic of the Internet on my website, MiddleEastRadioForum.org, where you can access the show live anywhere in the world and also listen to old shows in the archive section 24/7. I have a very interesting show today. I have author Devin Sper in studio, and I have Professor Menachem Klein on the telephone in Israel, and we'll get to them after we get to the news from Israel and my random thoughts. Regular part of the program now is News from Israel with David Badin. David, are you there?
Yes, thank you. This is David Badin reporting from the Beta Ground International Press Center in Jerusalem. Today there were 22 missile attacks against Israel, which were fired from Gaza, with the Hamas terror organization, which rules the Palestinian Authority, taking credit. A young man, aged 36, working as an engineer in Sper, was killed in the attacks this morning when he did not hear the siren go off. He was driving in his car. The United States government has called on Israel to refrain from attacking back in Gaza in ways that would affect the civilian population, fears that civilians would be killed. The United States State Department spokesman said Israel should not attack civilians, and meanwhile, the United States government has also been critical, a very critical statement against the government of Israel for arresting the leaders of Hamas who are in Judea and Samaria who have been endorsing the missile attacks. The government of Israel was extremely critical of the American government for issuing such a condemnation, and sources in the U.S. Justice Department expressed surprise at the American government, the American State Department condemnation, because the Justice Department is seeing that these groups are certainly listed on as terrorist organizations. Meanwhile, the United States government is also announcing the full military support of the Fatah organization, which is also listed by the United States as a terrorist organization. And however, General Dayton, the military representative over here in Israel, has assured Congress that, quote, nothing we do to strengthen the Palestinian security capability will be targeted against Israel. Why? Because he has oral assurances from the Palestinian Authority. Meanwhile, a very new development, missiles from Gaza are now being fired from populated areas in Gaza. How do we know? The Sderot Media Center filmed a missile fired from rooftops of an apartment building in Gaza, which can be seen on the website of the Sderot Media Center at www.sderotmedia.com. I repeat, www.sderotmedia.com. And at this time, the IDF has given orders to kill any and all rocket launchers, and this will mean, unfortunately, that we will see more civilians killed in the process on the other side, and Israel is bracing for wide condemnations when that happens. Israel is going to be widening its operations in Gaza over the next few days, and tune in to see what the results will be. This is David Bedin reporting from the Beit Hagron International Press Center in Jerusalem. Our office issues investigative reports of the current situation here, also of the Iranian backing of the Fatah organization, and our organization is supported by tax-deductible donations to the Center for Near East Policy Research, which is at POB 1783, Brookline, Massachusetts, 02446. Any questions there, Mr. Wolf?
Well, there may be, so why don't you hang on for a bit. One observation, of course, is that the United States is supplying the government of Lebanon with advanced weapons to go and kill Palestinians in refugee camps there. Just a bizarre world, absolutely. Thank you, but please hold on. All right, let me do an introduction here. I'm going to omit my random thoughts today unless I have some time at the end, because I want to make sure I have enough time for my guests. Professor Menachem Klein, you're a professor at Bar-Ilan University in Israel, and you're also a lecturer and author, and your resume is too long to read on the air today. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Thank you. And this is your second appearance, and my guest in studio is author Devin Sper. He wrote the book, The Future of Israel, and I highly recommend that book to anybody who's interested in issues regarding Israel and its survival. Welcome to the show, Devin.
Thank you, Bill, and hello, Professor.
Hi.
Okay, let's get right into it here. And in terms of the way we're going to handle the show, we've got a lot to get through, so I'm going to ask both my guests to try to be very concise in their responses, hopefully no more than about 60 seconds. I'm going to try not to be rigid about that, but if I have to jump in, I will. I just want to make sure that we can get through a lot of material today. And in terms of calls, we are taking calls. However, I would like to delay the calls until after the bottom of the hour so that we can really get into this material. Professor Klein, let me ask you the question first here. To what do you attribute the current fighting between Palestinians and the government in Lebanon? And I added something about that in my comments to David Bedin.
I am not an expert what's going on. It's North Lebanon. As far as I am informed, and only by reading, it was an incident between a very extreme Palestinian group supported by Al-Qaeda and the central government forces. Unfortunately, the Lebanese government forces were not coordinated, so the fire killed many civilians there, but it is a domestic Lebanese issue. As far as I know, Hezbollah is on the side of the central government in Lebanon.
Okay, before I go to Devin, I do want to follow up on a comment I made. To what do you attribute the United States arming the government of Lebanon to use these weapons against the Palestinians?
It's not against the Palestinians. It is against a group, not the Palestinians, against a small group of radical Palestinian organization that holds the ideology of Al-Qaeda, and that's it. It's not the Palestinians. It is a small group there. It is an internal issue of the Lebanese government.
Okay, Devin, go ahead.
Well, actually, it's not an internal issue. What this is an attempt by the Syrians to divert attention from the UN, which is about to condemn them for the assassination of Rafik Hariri, the former Lebanese prime minister. And as the report was about to come out, that after some research, the UN has decided that despite Syrian denials, they did assassinate Hariri, the Syrians chose to create a diversion by sending some of their proxies into this camp and ambushing the Lebanese army. They did this on purpose so that the Lebanese army would react exactly as it did, kill a lot of civilians, and then everyone's attention would be diverted from the UN report condemning Syria. And in this, they've succeeded.
It's my understanding there are tens of thousands of Palestinians in this camp.
That's exactly how the Syrians planned it, and they knew very well that the Lebanese army, unlike the Israeli army, would not hesitate to bombard the camp with heavy artillery.
Okay, Professor Klein, to what do you attribute the recent fighting between Hamas and Fatah?
Okay, just let me have a short comment, which will bring me back to Gaza Strip. I'm not a great fan of conspiracy theory, but people do believe in conspiracy, and I assume that also people who believe in conspiracy theory will also take it into the Gaza Strip and see the Syrians and Iranians behind any building in Gaza Strip, as they see the Syrians in charge of the conflict in Lebanon. I do not have any support whatsoever on a conspiracy behind what's going on in Gaza Strip. It's a chain of mistake, misunderstanding that light the fire based on mutual deep suspicious, and a very serious political competition between Fatah and Hamas, and also a lack of central authority in the Gaza Strip as well as in the West Bank. In this context, Israeli operation also brought the involvement of the Israelis into this very sad scene.
Okay, Devin, you have a response?
Yeah, well, what's happening in the Gaza Strip is that Fatah, which is a Palestinian nationalist terrorist organization, is losing power gradually to Hamas, which is like the Al-Qaeda, like Islamic Jihad, an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, and is not a Palestinian nationalist organization, but a pan-Islamic organization seeking to create one great caliphate and eventually take over the world. So what you're actually witnessing in Gaza today is the death of Palestinian nationalism.
Okay, any brief response, Professor Klein, or I'll go on to the next question.
I beg to differ because, unfortunately, perhaps the distance to United States mislead those who believe that Hamas is a pan-Islamist and they cannot read, unfortunately, Arabic and the publications. Hamas is a national religious organization that uses also terrorist methods in order to achieve national liberation from the Israeli occupation, and the agreement that Hamas signed in Mecca with Fatah was condemned by the pan-Islamist organization, by Al-Qaeda. So there is a huge difference between the two, but I'm very sorry. Reality is totally different than it looks from distance.
All right, I'm going to let Devin make a brief response, then I want to move on. Go ahead, Devin.
Well, first of all, Professor, regarding your comments that reality looks different up close, I venture to say that most Israelis agree with my position and that you're not in the mainstream in Israel. So your being closer doesn't necessarily make you right. Secondly, Hamas is an openly avowed pan-Islamic organization with Islamist goals. They said recently on the Palestinian children's show that we are not for a two-state solution and we are not for a one-state solution. We are for a pan-Islamic caliphate.
Okay, I do have to move on. All right, Devin, let me ask you this question first. How can Israel possibly make peace with a Palestinian Authority at war with itself?
Well, obviously it can't. Obviously, if the Palestinians have no representative that they themselves can get together around, even a terrorist organization like Fatah, then there's nothing that Israel can do. Okay,
Professor Klein?
Okay, my question will be what Israel should do. If doing nothing and just getting Qassam rockets, so what is the solution after trying all variety of options, of brutal attacks, of occupation, of disengagement? Okay, what else? What can work if you rule out any negotiation?
Okay, well, what should be negotiated, Professor Klein?
Okay, in my view, the force repertoire failed. Israel tried all kinds of force, and consequently everything fails. There is one thing that Israel did not try seriously: political track and serious political talks. And unfortunately, Israel will reach this conclusion, but paying a heavy cost. I'm very sad for that. But Israel tried all the repertoire that the Bibi Netanyahu and company offered. Nothing works. No one has the solution, and no one can reach anything by using more and more force. And therefore, the Israeli cabinet is embarrassed. The army is unwilling to enter into Gaza Strip. We were there. We tried the same in Lebanon, and we failed. So we have to learn the lessons. Even bringing,
All right, 30 seconds, please.
Hello?
Yes, I'm coming up on break.
Even appointing someone on behalf of Israel to clean Gaza Strip, as Israel made in South Lebanon, did not work. So we end up with nothing, but we have to go back to negotiation table.
Okay, Professor, I've got to interrupt you. We are coming up on the first break of the day. You're listening to Middle East Radio Forum here on News Talk 960 KKNT. My name is William Wolf. The show every Sunday, noon to 1 o'clock. Adjust your time if you're listening elsewhere on my website, MiddleEastRadioForum.org. We're having a lively discussion today with Professor Menachem Klein in Israel and author Devin Sper in studio today. And as always, I ask you to utilize the services of my advertisers, and especially Carroll's Automotive. You're going to hear their ad in the next break. Scott Carroll is the owner. He is the husband of a former secretary in my office. I know him personally. If you want great auto service and you want honest pricing, this is really a great place to go, Carroll's Automotive. Please, I'd like to keep them as an advertiser. If you need any service at all in your car, please give them a call. We'll be right back with Devin Sper and Professor Menachem Klein. Please stay with us.
Jewish News of Greater Phoenix is your source for timely news about the worldwide and local Jewish community. Our family-owned newspaper has been in business for 58 years. To subscribe, call 602-870-9470 or jewishaz.com. Stay in touch with all the news important to the Jewish community. That's 602-870-9470 or jewishaz.com.
Looking for a complete automotive repair shop? Family owned and operated since 1968? I have it for you. Carroll's, located at 6808 North 54th Avenue, just south of Glendale Avenue, has honest pricing and repair. Specializing in Volkswagen, old and new, and all imports and domestic as well. Also a full body shop for collision repair and restoration with discounted towing provided. Come visit their shop for a free checkover. That's Carroll's, 6808 North 54th Avenue, or call them at 623-939-4266. I just had body work done on my Honda. Now it looks as good as new. The official body and repair shop of Middle East Radio Forum. That's Carroll's, 6808 North 54th Avenue, 623-939-4266. Give them a call tomorrow and tell them William Wolf sent you there.
27th Avenue Medical is a loyal sponsor of MIRV. It's a no-appointment medical office where medical and chiropractic services are available into the early evening and Saturday morning. Located at 4527 North 27th Avenue, or call them at 602-249-4508. See Doctors James Miller, Tricia Croak-Ullman, or Roger Baker.
On News Talk 960 KKNT. To join in the conversation, call in anytime at 602-508-0960. That's 602-508-0960. Outside of the Valley, call toll-free 888-960-9696. Now back to your host, Attorney William J. Wolf.
Welcome back to today's very lively edition of Middle East Radio Forum. I have Professor Menachem Klein on the telephone from Israel and author Devin Sper in studio. And I've asked everybody to hold their calls until after the next break, which is at the bottom of the hour. And Professor Klein, if I can paraphrase what you were saying, you believe that Israel needs to engage in serious political talks, which it hasn't done, and that force will not work to solve the problem. I'm going to give Devin Sper a chance to respond.
Well, Obviously, Israel has negotiated with the Palestinians for many, many decades. We had the Y Agreement, the Camp David Agreement, the second Camp David Agreement. Everyone who reads the papers knows how many negotiations we've had. What hasn't worked, Professor, is land for peace. What hasn't worked is negotiations with an unrepentant and recalcitrant enemy. What Israel hasn't tried is victory. What Israel hasn't tried, it's tried these half-hearted measures where they shell you and you try to hit the house of the guy who shelled you. What they haven't done is all-out war, which there is no doubt, considering the ratio of forces, who would win that war.
Okay, thank you, Devin. I do want to move on, and I'm going to ask both of you to try to be a little bit more concise in your responses. Another Israeli citizen was killed today, as David Badin said in the news today at the beginning of the show. And this is as a result of the continuous Palestinian rocking of Sderot. Professor, what do you think Israel should do to stop the 6-year bombardment of Sderot?
Israel first should reevaluate its strategy, and Israel must begin thinking politically. And I repeat that because this exactly what is absent from the Israeli discourse. The Israeli discourse is about using this kind of force or that kind of force. Nothing new in the Israeli debate. We reoccupied the West Bank and Gaza Strip several times since the opening of the Intifada. Nothing helped. We disengaged unilaterally without an agreement, in principle not speaking with the Palestinians. In the Gaza Strip, it did not help. We built more settlements and before and Oslo and after signing the Oslo, during the Oslo years, in order to get more and more areas to control them. Nothing helped.
I need you to finish your response, please.
Okay, so then we must get among ourselves and discuss, okay, what can work? What failed and what can work? We never negotiated seriously.
Okay, Devin, go ahead.
Well, at the same time, Professor, that you're saying we never negotiated seriously, you mentioned the Oslo Agreement, so I'm not sure how that squares. In answer to your question, Bill, the mayor of Sderot said today that the fall of Sderot will be the fall of the entire Zionist enterprise. Now, people are leaving the city. School classes have all already been moved to other cities. And what we see here is a logical progression. They drove the Jews through Terra out of Gush Katif. They are driving the Jews out of Sderot from Terra, and even the professor and those like him in Israel would agree that Sderot is part of Israel. It's not occupied anything. Next, they are going to shell Ashkelon. They are already shelling Ashkelon, which is a larger city. And eventually, they'll shell Tel Aviv. So the idea of continuing to appease them, play tit for tat, or retreat is not working. And what Israel needs to do is what any country needs to do. Your first obligation as a government is not to appease or negotiate or make the enemy happy. Your first obligation is to protect the life and property of your citizens. And Israel has the capability of doing that immediately, and that's what they need to do.
All right, Professor, and you can follow up on Devin's response, also in response to my next question. From everything I've read in the translations of the Arabic press, the Palestinians in the Arab world are not interested in any type of a live next to in peace Israel solution. If you look at any website, Palestinian website, pull up a map, Israel is not on there. Do you believe that the Palestinians are interested in living side by side in peace with Israel? And if so, what evidence do you have for that?
I am sure that the vast majority of the Palestinians are interested in living side by side next to Israel because they see that Israel is strong. I disagree that we are on the edge of the fall of Zionism and so on. Israel is a very strong country, well-based, and I do not see that the end of Zionism and the end of the State of Israel is coming very soon.
Professor, I do want you.
Now,
Professor, before you get any further, I do want you to answer my question, though. What evidence do you have that, contrary to what Devin is saying and what is in the Arabic press, the Palestinians are not interested in destroying Israel, but are interested in living in peace next to Israel? What evidence do you have, please?
First, I beg to differ to your definition, once again, the Palestinians. There is no such a creature, the Palestinians.
Well, then who do you negotiate with?
There are different views inside, as there is no such a common view, the Israelis. If you just take out the Palestinians and put the Israelis, will you be right to say that, okay, there are no Israelis that are willing to live side by side with Palestinians?
Israel has a democratically elected representative government which represents Israel. The Palestinians don't. Therefore, you can talk about a legitimate authority in Israel and not a legitimate authority in Palestine.
Sorry to say, but there were democratic elections in Palestine that many people are not happy with the results. That's another issue. But you cannot say that democracy is what you have and the other side do not have.
Fine, then you have a democratically elected Palestinian authority which calls for the destruction of Israel. What evidence do you have contradicting that? That's also not accurate. There are some Palestinians that call for the destruction of Israel. The vast majority call to destroy the Israeli occupation. Was Hamas elected by the majority of the Palestinian people or not? I'm using your words from a moment ago.
As there are Israelis and Jews abroad that are calling to reoccupy Palestine and rule them forever, the Palestinians, and there are many other Israelis that want to end the occupation. The Jews are divided, the Israelis are divided. The Palestinians
is Sderot an occupied place in your opinion?
The vast majority of the Palestinians support the two-state solution.
Hamas does not support, and Hamas was elected by 67% of Palestinians. Is Sderot an occupied city in your estimation?
Sderot is not 67, is on 67 occupied territories.
And they're shelling Sderot. We're not talking about why you interjecting occupation. We're talking about pre-67 Israel, which they're shelling.
But unfortunately, Sderot suffers, and I live in Jerusalem in an area which was a few terrorist attacks were here in my neighborhood. I also live in an area that exposed to terrorist attacks. And unfortunately, if the Israelis bring the frontier into the Palestinian territories, unfortunately, and I do not support that, the Palestinians answer with terror and bringing the frontier to the homes and the land of the Israelis.
So Sderot is in the Palestinian territory? Sderot is in the frontier of the Palestinian territory? Is that what you're saying? I want to understand.
Sderot is in a frontier, Ashkelon is a frontier, and Jerusalem is a frontier, and Kiryat Shmona was in a frontier at that time, and for Hezbollah also Haifa was in frontier, and but that's the problem. I would like to finish all this, and I do not know how war ends, but with an agreement.
Okay, I'm going to have to interrupt now. We are coming up on the second break of the day. You're listening to Middle East Radio Forum here on News Talk 960 KKNT. My name is William Wolf. The show every Sunday, noon to 1 o'clock here in Arizona. Please adjust your time if you're listening elsewhere on the internet through my website, middleeastradioforum.org. I have asked you to hold your questions until now. You can start calling in because we will be taking questions after the break. And this program is also brought to you by Bethel Congregation, 1118 West Glendale in Phoenix, where a warm Sabbath experience is available for you every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. Make Bethel your spiritual home away from home. And I will add that my daytime job is a personal injury attorney. I do not charge for initial consultation, so if you have any questions regarding a personal injury matter, you may call me at my office, 602-279-1914. That's 602-279-1914. We have Professor Menachem Klein on the telephone from Jerusalem and author Devin Sper in studio. We're having a lively discussion about various issues regarding war, peace, Palestinians, Israelis. It's going to continue after the break. And again, please utilize the services of all my advertisers. And each time you do, it's very important that you tell them that you're doing so because they advertise on this program. That is how the show is brought to you. Cherry Blossom Noodle Cafe is very happy with the response from my listeners, and I thank you very much for that. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. This is William J. Wolf to thank Carmen Cercone of the Householder Group, specializing in estate and retirement planning, for being a loyal sponsor of Middle East Radio Forum. He is located at 8985 East Bell Road in Scottsdale. Telephone 480-556-9600. Carmen has been my investment advisor for 4 years. I trust him with my financial future. Give him a call for a free financial analysis and see what his personal attention can do for you. He has been in business here in the Phoenix area for more than 20 years. That's Carmen Cercone of the Householder Group, 8985 East Bell Road in Scottsdale. 480-556-9600. That's 480-556-9600. Securities offered through AIG Financial Advisors, Inc., a registered broker-dealer, member NASD and SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through the Householder Group, a registered investment advisor.
If you're looking for a complete quality computer service company that is knowledgeable, reliable, professional, and fast, you need Ultimate Computer Concepts of Phoenix. We offer service and support for all of your computer needs, and we've been serving the Valley for over 10 years, specializing in computer systems and software, internet service, security, networking, and website hosting and development. Call 602-230-4747 or visit us online at uccinc.net.
Kosher pizza in Phoenix? Yes. King Solomon Pizza is kosher and terrific. And it's much more than just pizza. Pasta, salads, fish, and much more. Try it once and you will be back again. Located next to Siegel's on the west side of 7th Street, just south of Camelback. That's King Solomon Kosher Pizza and much more. On the west side of 7th Street, just south of Camelback, next to Siegel's, or call them at 602-870-8655.
My friends, we all hope we'll never need the services of an attorney. Sometimes, of course, we don't have a choice. This is Dennis Prager here to tell you about William J. Wolf, attorney at law. William J. Wolf's practice is limited to injury and wrongful death claims, and although he's been in practice for over 31 years, he is not part of some huge impersonal law firm. To the contrary, when you call William J. Wolf, that's who you get. This means you also get very personal service. Over the years, William J. Wolf has successfully taken on many cases that other lawyers have turned down. Now you get the benefit of all that experience. There is absolutely no charge for initial consultation. As I said, we all hope we never need an injury attorney, but if you do, you want one with a lot of experience and one who will handle your case personally. That would be William J. Wolf, offices at 1121 East Missouri. Hours to fit your schedule. His number, 602-279-1914, 602-279-1914, outside the Phoenix metro area, 1-800-WOLF-LAW.
Cherry Blossom Noodle Cafe is no longer a secret. On the northwest corner of 10th Street and Camelback, the best restaurant for great sushi, Asian noodle and rice dishes, salads, and even great pasta. Make Cherry Blossom Noodle Cafe your place for a great Asian or pasta lunch or dinner. On the northwest corner of 10th Street and Camelback, or call them at 602-248-9090. That's 602-248-9090.
Middle East Radio Forum on News Talk 960 KKNT. To join in the conversation, call in anytime at 602-508-0960. That's 602-508-0960. Outside of the Valley, call toll-free 888-960-9696. Now back to your host, Attorney William J. Wolf.
Welcome back to today's very lively edition of Middle East Radio Forum. My name is William Wolf. Please spread the word about this show every Sunday, noon to 1 o'clock in Arizona, 3 p.m. on the east coast of the United States, and 10 p.m. in Israel. And the reason I say that is you can listen anywhere you have an internet connection on my website, middleeastradioforum.org, where you can also use it to send me an email, and you can also listen to old shows 24/7 in my archives. David Badin, who gave the news from Israel, is on the line with us. As you know, we have Devin, Sper, and Professor Menachem Klein also on the telephone. David, before I let you go, I wanted to give you an opportunity for any brief comments, and please do keep it brief.
Yeah, sure. It seems, look, the comments made by Dr. Klein are rather shocking, because Dr. Klein did not give an honest answer it's not that who cares about what the majority think according to public opinion polls. If one were asked in Nazi Germany in 1938, do the majority of the people support Kristallnacht or burning Jews in Auschwitz, I don't know if the majority of Jews would favor it. The key issue is that the Palestinian Authority, as an entity, for the last 15 years of the Oslo process, has not expressed any recognition whatsoever of the state or people of Israel. And what's most important, besides the Hamas not recognizing Israel, the Fatah never at any point ratified any agreement with Israel to recognize it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I guess we've lost David. David, anyway, if you're listening on the internet, thank you for being on the show. Okay, let's move on, and I want to go to Devin. Devin, do you agree that Hamas's targeting of Israeli civilians with rockets is a war crime? And if so, should the leaders of Hamas be brought to trial at The Hague?
Well, I certainly do agree, because according to the Geneva Convention, targeting civilians, which is what Hamas is doing when it launches missiles into Sderot, which, for clarification to the listeners who may be confused by the previous segment, is inside of pre-1967 Israel and has not occupied anything. So they're shooting missiles over an international border into civilian cities. Likewise, when Hezbollah shelled Israeli cities in the north from Lebanon, they not only targeted civilian cities on purpose. Let me be clear. They're not targeting a military base and accidentally hitting cities and collateral damage. They're targeting cities. And they would stuff these missiles with anti-personnel shrapnel to hurt as many civilians as they could. I believe that even Amnesty International has called this a war crime, and I can see no reason why the leaders of Hamas should not be brought to trial at The Hague.
Okay, Professor Klein, I'll let you respond, and then I want to take some calls.
Regarding The Hague, I suggest that those who call for bringing Palestinian leaders to The Hague will not be selective, and they should not assume that once the Palestinian leaders will be brought to The Hague, then the Israelis can escape the same process. As also, the Israelis are targeting cities, and there are enough evidence and also declarations made by USA authorities that condemn some Israeli operations against civilians. So here, the selectivity does not work in favor of those who raise such strange arguments, and in principle, I am against hurting any civilian whatsoever.
Well, what about the question, though, Professor? Should these these leaders of Hamas, be brought to trial at The Hague, yes or no?
Are you okay? If you agree that anyone that hurts in purpose civilians should be brought into to The Hague, I am in favor of that. You cannot be selective.
Okay, Devin, very quickly, we are coming up on the next break, and I'll have to take the calls after the break.
Well, I've answered that question.
Okay.
But let me just say that you have not answered the question, Professor. The question is not conditional on what Bill thinks. He's asking you what you think.
Okay, we are coming up on the break, and I know Steve and Joel are on the line. We'll get to you right after the break. You're listening to Middle East Radio Forum here on News Talk 960 KKNT. My name is William Wolf. I'm the host of the show every Sunday, noon to 1 o'clock. Adjust your time if you're listening elsewhere on my website, middleeastradioforum.org. And as always, I ask you to please utilize the services of my advertisers, and when you do so, please let them know you're doing so because they advertise on this program. That will help me bring the show to you. And it really is very important. Like I mentioned earlier, Cherry Blossom Noodle Cafe is very happy with the response. Also, I will mention Me Patio Restaurant is very happy with the response. Carroll's Automotive, that's another thing. I need to get them some business so they will continue to advertise. And as I mentioned, the owner, Scott Carroll, he's the husband of a former secretary in my office. I know him personally. He's a very good mechanic. They do great work. I use them for my car, and they're very fair in their pricing. I know we always have problems finding an honest, good mechanic. Well, you don't have to look anymore. Carroll's is great, so please utilize them. I've got Professor Menachem Klein on the telephone in Jerusalem, and I have author Devin Sper in studio. We're having a lively discussion, and we are taking the calls. I'll get to Steve and Joel right after the break. And please stay with us if you can and spread the word about this show to anybody who is interested, because they can't access this show anywhere in the world on my website. Again, MiddleEastRadioForum.org. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. There are a lot of great Mexican restaurants in Phoenix, but I am very particular. When I want the best Mexican lunch or dinner, I head straight to Mi Patio on the southeast corner of 7th Avenue in Osborne. They serve all your favorite dishes and only use pure vegetable oil in their cooking. Mi Patio is sure to become your favorite Mexican restaurant too. That's Mi Patio Mexican Restaurant on the southeast corner of 7th Avenue in Osborne. Tell them that William Wolf sent you there.
27th Avenue Medical is a loyal sponsor of MIRV. It's a no-appointment medical office where medical and chiropractic services are available into the early evening and Saturday morning. Located at 4527 North 27th Avenue, or call them at 602-249-4508. See Doctors James Miller, Tricia Croak-Ullman, or Roger Baker. Have a doctor when you need one.
If you're looking for a complete quality computer service company that is knowledgeable, reliable, professional, and fast, you need Ultimate Computer Concepts of Phoenix. We offer service and support for all of your computer needs, and we've been serving the Valley for over 10 years, specializing in computer systems and software, internet service, security, networking, and website hosting and development. Call 602-230-4747 or visit us online at uccinc.net.
Jewish News of Greater Phoenix is your source for timely news about the worldwide and local Jewish community. Our family-owned newspaper has been in business for 58 years. To subscribe, call 602-870-9470 or jewishaz.com. Stay in touch with all the news important to the Jewish community. That's 602-870-9470 or jewishaz.com.
You're listening to the Middle East Radio Forum on News Talk 960 KKNT. To join in the conversation, call in anytime at 602-508-0960. That's 602-508-0960. Outside of the Valley, call toll-free 888-960-9696. Now back to your host, Attorney William J. Wolf.
Welcome back to the final segment of today's Middle East Radio Forum. My name is William Wolf. Again, the show, noon to 1 o'clock in Arizona every Sunday. Spread the word about the show. MiddleEastRadioForum.org is the key to listening live anywhere, and also to sending me an email, and also to listening to old shows in the archives. I promised the callers that have been patiently waiting I'd get to them. Steve calling from Scottsdale, go ahead, you're on the air. And who do you have a question for?
This is a question for Professor Klein.
Go ahead, please.
Professor Klein, you're more than disingenuous when you're telling the listeners that half of Israel that Israel is divided. According to an Angus Reid global monitoring poll conducted last Wednesday, the 23rd of May, reported on Israel National News the very next day, 69%, that's more than two-thirds, of the respondents said they do not believe it is possible to reach peace with the Palestinian Authority. 58%, more than half, opposed, quote, the Land for Peace formula. And 72%, that's overwhelming majority, said they do not support uprooting of Jewish communities for the purpose of unilateral withdrawal from places like Golan or Judea Samaria, or, Professor, as you are fond of calling it, using the Arab term for the place, the West Bank.
Steve,
I'd like your response.
Okay, go ahead, Professor.
Okay, sorry. There is a mistrust in the Israeli majority mistrust the Palestinians. However, the Israeli majority support of land for peace. This more than ever, the majority of the Israelis are willing to go back to 67 borders, not unilaterally, but with an agreement, an outcome of negotiations.
Well, Professor, are you saying excuse me, Professor, are you saying that the statistics just quoted are incorrect? Because I also heard those.
No, I support the statistics regarding mistrust. I support the statistic regarding rejecting the unilateral. Just bear in mind that a year and a half ago, the vast majority supported the unilateral withdrawal from Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Now we learned the lesson. And the majority, two-thirds, supports going back to 67 territories, and they have over 50% support dividing Jerusalem.
So, Professor, I just want to make sure I understand, because we do have to get through this more quickly. Are you saying that Land for Peace works and is a good idea?
It's a very good idea. There is no better idea. I
Okay.
don't know if it's not the best, but it's less worse.
All right, let's Devin respond, please.
Well, that was a theory that I never believed in, but we don't have to talk theory anymore. The track record of Land for Peace is abysmal. Israel has given away a lot of land. It has given away all of Gaza. It has thrown 10,000 Jews out of their home in order to mollify and appease the Arabs, and it has not brought peace. There are missiles falling on Sderot, I think, for 16, 18 days in a row. They've been falling for 6 years. That's not peace.
Okay, I have to move on.
I beg to differ. Israel did not sign any agreement when Israel left Gaza Strip. It was not. It was done unilaterally, and Israel actually just evacuated settlement, but did not leave Gaza Strip. Israel is closing Gaza Strip as a big prison. That's not a peace. It's misleading the audience, and it's far away from that. The Palestinians have the full right to fight for self-determination. They don't have any right to hit civilians.
Okay, go ahead, Devin, quickly, then we have to go to Joel.
Israel, of course, did sign an agreement with Yasser Arafat. They signed the Oslo Accords. The Palestinians have abrogated them in spirit and in practice.
Okay, I have
Israel
to move on.
misled the Palestinians.
I have to go on, please, Professor. Joel calling from Phoenix. You have a question for Professor Klein?
The professor spoke sort of like a justification for Hamas is occupation, and I was just wondering specifically what area does he think that Israel occupies, and what does Devin think about that?
Okay, Professor, you go first, and then I'll get Devin's response.
According to the international law, Israel occupied the 67 territories, the West Bank, and still occupies Gaza Strip. Holding the Gaza Strip as a big prison is continuation of the occupation by other means. So Israel controls the Gaza Strip, not inside but from outside. This was the purpose of the unilateral withdrawal. Israel cannot say that it left Gaza Strip. So Israel still occupies the 67 territories. Some of them are annexed, others are under full Israeli control. So that's very, very clear. Unfortunately, there are two views. One says that is positive. The other says it is negative. But these are facts that no one can argue with.
All right, well, let's see if Devin can argue with it. Go ahead, Devin.
Yes, I beg to differ. Israel does not occupy Gaza. You're trying to say that by being around the edge of Gaza, Israel somehow controlling it. Of course, every country has the right to control its borders. Certainly a country like Israel, from which they're being attacked from across the border and shelled. So that doesn't constitute occupation under international law or any sort of law or anybody's definition.
Okay, I do have to move on. Let me ask Devin this question first. Israeli police recently revealed that Azmi Bishara, an Arab Knesset member, relayed military information to the enemy during the war in Lebanon. Rather than arrest him, the police invited him to leave the country, which he has done. Do you think that the Israelis handled this situation correctly, Devin?
No, I don't, because that is an abrogation of their duty to arrest a person who had done serious harm to Israel during the war. This is treachery, which in the United States and most civilized countries is punishable with the death penalty. And I think the case you brought up, Bill, is symptomatic of Israel's failure to take responsibility for statehood, for the Jewish failure to not take their state seriously. No correctly functioning democracy allows a traitor like Bishara to simply walk because they don't want to deal with the political aspects of arresting him. He should have been arrested, he should have been tried, and if he was convicted, he should have gotten the penalty. That's the correct way to handle it because of the precedent you set.
Okay, Professor Klein, go ahead. A brief response, please.
Okay, up to this moment, I did not see any single evidence whatsoever coming from the Israeli authorities. Okay, one can say many things, but there are no evidence put to the public, just blames. Now, it is a method of any policeman, any security services, and it is the same method used against Sharon at that time, Bibi Netanyahu, Olmert, all people, that the police begins with very, very high blames, ending up with a very small and minor suit and accusations. So I am very suspicious. That is the method that police works. They want to create a public opinion, to put pressure on the person, and that's okay. I am very cool. I would like to see the evidence.
Okay, Devin, briefly, please.
The evidence, Professor, is that they have recorded cell phone conversations of him directing Hezbollah fire on Israeli cities during the war.
I would like to see the transcript.
So would I, but we are not privy to that right now. If Bushara would not have left the country and they would have stood trial, as I advocate, you and I would have seen whether it was true. And so you would have to agree with me that what he needed to do was, if he was innocent, was stand trial, and the police would then have to present evidence. I'm sure you'd agree the Israeli justice system is a relatively fair justice system. The fact that he left the country rather than face a trial tells you that he's guilty.
Okay,
no, not automatically.
Okay, Professor, I have to break for a second here because I have Pastor Eddie on the line. Pastor Eddie, and you're going to make an announcement about a night to honor Israel in Phoenix.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
And welcome, and tell us what church you're with, please.
I'm actually the prayer pastor at Scottsdale First Assembly up here at Pima and Dynamite in North Scottsdale. And thank you so much for this opportunity to let your listeners know about the Night to Honor Israel. But June 24th at 6:30 to 8:30 at Symphony Hall, we're having a Night to Honor Israel. And there have been over 55 Night to Honor Israels in the last year, raised $10 million plus to actually help with Israeli humanitarian projects. Ours were, the net proceeds of the evening are actually going to go towards the area around Gaza Strip to help. It's not been specifically applied, but it's going to help that area. But if people want to get tickets, all they need to do is go to Ticketmaster.com and put a Night to Honor Israel in, or just put a night, and you can purchase your tickets. They're $18 a piece, and like I said, the net proceeds of this are going to go to the humanitarian project. And if people would like to purchase block tickets, they can actually call me here at the church, 480-367-8182, and we've got a special rate for those as well. But the evening itself is going to be a great evening with Pastor John Hagee as the keynote speaker. We're going to have Wild Branches, who is a musical group that has Christians in it, but that also has a Jewish cantor, will be the lead singer. He's the cantor for, I believe, the largest synagogue in Sacramento, California. And just a lot of good stuff that night. We're going to have there'll be some Holocaust survivors there, and at the very least we'll basically just honor them by just in the smallest way possible, if just depending on what happens there. But there's going to be Holocaust survivors there. There's going to be a lot of people from the Jewish community. We're connecting with the Jewish Federation, and it's just an opportunity for people to honor the state of Israel and the Jewish people, because we as Christians want to show that we believe that the Tanakh is true, and that they are a blessed people of God.
Okay, thank you very much, Pastor Eddie. Appreciate that very much. Okay, I do want to rush back into the show here. I have a question I want to make sure that I ask before the show's over, and Professor Klein, what would have happened to Israel had it lost the wars of 1948 and 1967? And then I'll ask Devin the same, and we got to be very brief, please.
It was not an option. It was not an option. The power balance shows, and was at that time real, that Israel was stronger than any other country and any Arab coalition against her. It was not. It's very hypothetical.
Well, fine, but
question.
that is I'm the show host, and I have a right to create a hypothetical. Had Israel lost either one of those, and in 1948, Israel certainly was on the edge of being destroyed. What do you think would have happened?
Not at all. Not at all.
All right, Devin, do you want to? Devin, go ahead. Do you have a response?
Yes, the Arabs, we can go by what the Arabs said they would do. And in 1948, they said that they would commit genocide and kill all of the Jews. And they said the same thing in 1967. So if they are to be believed, then, and I think they are, then there would have been genocide and they would have killed 6 million Jews. And in other words, Israel had no option but to...
Okay, but you believe only to one sentence that they said. You believe that they want to kill Jews, they want now, and they will want so forever.
Well, first of all, please don't put words in my mouth, Professor, and I will tell you openly, I believe everything they say. That is the difference between you and I. I believe them when Hamas says that they want to destroy Israel. I believed Arafat when he said he wants to destroy Israel. It was people like you who pretended otherwise. I believe everything they say.
Okay,
including when they declare that they want peace. Okay, fine. So we agree.
Yes, and I'm waiting. Yes, it is fine, and I'm waiting for that declaration.
Okay, I've got a caller, Professor.
Continue to be selective.
Professor, I'm sorry, but I have a caller I have to take. Hannah from Phoenix, go ahead. Please be brief. You have a comment for Professor Klein.
Yes. I'm very disappointed to hear Professor Klein is an Israeli-American. Hamas clearly said they'll never accept Israel. Fatah was established in 1964. That was before the occupation. There is no way we can please the Palestinians except the destruction of Israel. And the fact that we didn't get any peace up till now, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean to give up. And we should just be patient. We're dealing with terrorists.
Okay, thank you very much for your call. Professor, I have to ask you this question before the end of the show. Jews have lived in cities like Hebron continuously for thousands of years. Tell me, please, why doesn't a Jew have the same right to live in Hebron as an Arab does, or perhaps why not in Jordan or Saudi Arabia?
No problem. A Jew can live under full Palestinian sovereignty as an individual, accepting the Palestinian law, no problem, but not as a community, as a settler, to expand Israeli sovereignty over Palestinian populated area. No problem.
Okay.
There is no Palestinian resistance for a Jew individual living inside Palestine.
Okay, go ahead, Devin.
Do I understand you correctly? Then you were against forcibly removing the Jews from Gush Katif?
I am against settlements as they are. I am in favor of any Jewish Israeli or American Jew that wants to reside inside another state, Palestine, that he will apply for that and got residency. That's okay, and he can immigrate. He can go to holidays, whatever. But
well, as you know full well, it is illegal under Saudi law, for example, for a Jew to even set foot in the country. It is a apartheid racist regime. The same is true in much of the Arab world, and the same is true, of course, in the Palestinian Authority. You have a legal situation that it is illegal to be a Jew in that area.
It's a holy
30 seconds,
land.
Please. You only have 30 seconds.
It's a holy land according to the Quran, and they have
so
a
that's
freedom
okay.
of worship.
So if it's according to their religion, that's okay.
That's okay because it's freedom of worship.
Well, it's not. You know what? That's not okay with us because Hebron is the second holy city in Jerusalem, and so that's not okay with us.
Okay,
that's not okay with us. Definitely, there is no relationship in Judaism between sovereignty and holiness.
Okay.
Not at all.
All right, Devin, you got 10 seconds, then I have to cut it off. Do you have anything further?
No, except that the professor is here supporting a policy which is basically apartheid, that it is okay because for religious reasons they say Jews can't live in that area. That is okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Klein in Jerusalem, Devin Sper. I have to end the show at this point. Next week, my official historian, Dr. Steve Carroll, returns for the Kurds, Part 6, Iraq and the Kurds. Saddam commits genocide against the Kurds. Very important show. And please check out the other portions of the presentation of Dr. Carroll on the website, MiddleEastRadioForum.org. That's where you have the archives and you can access Dr. Carroll's shows as well as the previous show between Devin Sper and Professor Menachem Klein. Again, thank you very much, Professor Klein, for being on Middle East Radio Forum. Thank you, Devin Sper. And again, the show every Sunday, noon to 1 o'clock here in Arizona, available worldwide on my website, middleeastradioforum.org. There are many people who would like to listen to the show, but they just don't know about it, so please tell everybody you know who might be interested about this show. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back again with Dr. Steve Carroll next week.
This was a paid program and was provided for informational purposes only.